This is another Thirsty for Knowledge Thursday. It's our weekly webinar series. Tonight we are doing renting versus buying things. Is cash still the king? A 5-round bout. Craig and I were the judges to this. The first one is acceptability. So credit versus cash. In today's world, you're going to find that there are actually merchants who don't accept credit cards because of the fees. And certainly if you're traveling overseas, you'll run into a situation where you might run into vendors or restaurants or places that don't accept credit cards. And so then you're going to be scrambling around trying to get cash. Everybody takes cash. Have you ever had a situation where you either lost your card, lost your wallet, or had your card information stolen? You know there were safeguards in play. Cash, I don't know how many times you may have lost cash and had somebody return it to you, Craig. Round 3 is anonymity. And this is the other side to that. Like, you buy something on credit nowadays, you immediately are getting hit. Even if you just browsed for something, you're getting hit with ads. Amazon knows exactly who you are, knows what you're buying, when you're buying it, and where it is. From the standpoint of, I'm trying to be more off the grid than on the grid, cash is king. But then we come to rewards. The only reward I see for paying with cash is that you don't have any more payments.
Well, the other thing I will say is sometimes businesses that will say, here's your cash price, here's your credit price.
Credit score. And ultimately, you're not going to gain anything paying cash in a credit score. In fact, Craig, it's the opposite, right? You're actually could be lowering or damaging your credit score by not having credit or having an open credit card. Ultimately, it comes down to the cash is not the king. Renting versus buying a home. There's two sides to this, which are the pros and cons of both. So the pros with renting, let's face it, there's really no maintenance involved. The other pro with it is there's no property tax. Renting gives you an easy way to move on, right? You're not held down, you're not tied down. So it's pretty much, I've got the freedom to go once my lease is up.
Well, it's fun because I am a homeowner, right? So one thing is make it yours. I remember when I was a kid, we rented and you couldn't even put up a nail without permission. Well, now I can build a room if I want to. Even though you do have to do your maintenance, it's still mine to maintain. So no payment hikes. So that's one really nice factor is the only thing that possibly can go up is a little bit what you call the property tax and sometimes some of the insurance on the property. But usually once you have a mortgage in place, if you have it fixed, your payments stay the same. The next thing that I like about buying or owning a house is I build equity, which I don't do when I rent. But over the longer haul, it's about a 5 to 6% growth rate on property over time. In addition to that, when you're paying down the loan, as you pay the loan down, the equity builds up. So you're leveraging someone else's money, which is to buy the property, so that you can actually build an equity for yourself.
Because let's face it, unlike a fixed mortgage, your rent is not fixed. Your rent is basically at the whim of the prevailing rates that go on. And over time, those are increasing because the property management knows that they can do that. You're on a fixed lease arrangement. And the property sometimes can then suddenly no longer be available. And, it is ultimately, you're just paying somebody else's equity is what you're doing.
So some of the downside with buying is in order to buy a house, most often you need to have a down payment. The other, I guess, would be, cost of selling. With buying, now you can't just walk away. You've got to sell the property. Other issue is, maintenance. Maintenance is something you have to build into the budget. It's on top of the monthly payment that you don't have for renting.
Leasing versus buying a car. A lease really is just, hey, I'm going to have the car, it's mine for the time period I've got for the lease. There's usually some upfront number that you've got to pay for that. They're pretty much unbreakable. You can turn it back in and, hey, I've got the next model because I'm just going to lease the next model. If you're somebody who's concerned about driving an older vehicle, you want something that's always going to be new and fresh, Leasing is that mindset. Generally, it's 12 to 15,000 miles a year is what the number is. And if you go over it, they hit you with, it's usually somewhere around 10 to 20 cents a mile over that number. You are able to negotiate that down. You're covered under the vehicle's warranty. So there's really no cost or maintenance other than oil changes. If you're somebody who you don't travel a lot, don't drive a lot, or really feel like, hey, I need to have something I know isn't going to really ever break down on me because I worry about that, leasing sometimes might be the way to go with it. When compared to leasing, you can pretty much sometimes get in a similar, maybe you have to go an extra year instead of 36, maybe you're paying it off in 4 years, but you can get fairly close depending on what you put down to what you would have been paying for the lease. But now at the end of it, you own it. The cost and maintenance of owning is going to be less than leasing. If you're somebody who is going to be using the vehicle, it's something that you plan on keeping for, or can visualize having the vehicle for a time period of at least 5 to 7 years, you're better off buying. Credit cards, at this point right now, the median number of cards per household is 2. That's 2 more than we think everybody should have, but we know it's a plastic society, and we're talking credit cards, not debit cards. The problem is we get credit cards, every store offers us credit cards and we think this is great, and then next thing you know, we've got a wallet full of these cards and we tend to be spending with them. So that number is, I think, only going to be going up. The average household debt, the credit card debt is $2,000. That is actually down. That's, I think, one of the things the pandemic did was it lowered the overall spending habit for people. So that number is actually a reduced number. It's a little bit down, though the monthly, new credit card charges, the average is about $300 a month, which, all of this doesn't sound bad until you actually look at what the average rate that is being paid on a credit card right now has gone up from 12.5% to 13%. That is the average interest rate that is being paid on that $2,000 a year, the balance that's there. When we look at that, you got to forgive us here because we did this based off the 12.5, not the 13%. This is understanding the cost of debt. So if I take that $2,000 debt and I have a 12.5% interest rate and I pay it off in 1 year, it's actually going to cost me $142 in interest charges. Now, you may look at that and say, that's 60 payments. What's 720? That's $12 a month. Well, $12 a month, if we just said that's $12 that I could have been putting towards my retirement, say, and let's say I was getting a match from my employer of 25%, which $3, that means there's $15 going into my retirement plan on a monthly basis. And if I was just getting a modest 6% return over the same 5-year period, instead of being out of pocket $720, I'd be plus over $1,000 in my retirement plan. And that's what drags us down is this, well, I can afford that because I can pay $46 a month and I can get that paid off. But ultimately, it's a drag on what else you want to do. But that's how we do it.
Have questions? Ask us. We can help with that. You can email Craig at crichardson@aresfoundation.org, or you can visit the website to learn more about what we do and how we might be able to help you. www.aresfoundation.org. Want to see more of this recording? Go to www.aresfoundation.org/events. If you know an organization or community support group that could benefit from one of our workshops, reach out to Tom T. Alessi at aresfoundation.org. Our mission is trying to help everyone have a better relationship with their money.